So I'm gonna now go over the relational schema based on the ER model that we built in the previous video. If you have not watched it, please do. If you just care about learning the relational schema, feel free to stay. I'm gonna go back and forth a lot uh, because I can't really see it on another screen. So please stay patient with me. Alrighty. Actually, let me just. Can I draw? Okay, I'm here. Okay. Just need to find where my mouse is. It's pretty hard to see if it's not black. There we go. Okay, so to start off, I'm just gonna go through a couple and then explain. So we have hotel, chain. We're gonna have, I call it HCID. That's gonna be underlined, and then we're gonna have our attributes. We're gonna have phone. Okay, so as you can see, I basically wrote the entity name, wrote its primary ID and underlined it, and then wrote its attribute. You of course will have probably many more attributes, but for now, you're fine. Since this is so let's just start with hotel as well. We're gonna have hotel, and then we're gonna have its primary key, which is HID. This is gonna be underlined. We also have rating, and then we also have phone. Let's go below. So we have hotel chain, and we have this relationship connecting them both, right? Owns, which is end to end. Since owns is end to end, we must write it down within our relational schema. Okay? If it was any other relationship, as you can see like later, it works a little differently, but for now, since it's end to end, we have to write it down. So owns and owns, since it's a relationship, will contain the foreign keys, which is the primary keys of hotel and hotel chain. So if you see hotel owns will have hotel CID, which will be its primary, and then it will also have hotel ID. You can name them the same, you can name them differently, it doesn't matter, because you're going to establish the relationship, and you're going to say the foreign keys are going to be, well, it's going to be owns dot hotel or HID, or let me just restart this, HID to hotel dot HID. Let's say this was different, just so I can show you how to like do it when it is different. Let's say instead of HCID, let's change this to whatever. Let's change this to this PPID, okay? Just so you can tell how different it is. Well, you're gonna do owns dot PPID to hotel chain dot HCID. And you have to write this if you're doing your relational schema this way. And I highly recommend doing it this way because drawing out the tables will confuse you. This is the fastest way to do it on an exam. So you just have to list out what foreign keys, where they're from. It's basically where you are currently, dot, what is the relation that you're connecting it to, what is the entity you're connecting it to, versus what is the key you're connecting it to. It's pretty simple. It's like basic coding. In terms of like classes and relationships, but you must list this out if you're doing something like this on an exam. So we also have room, which is an entity. We have a room ID. What else do we have? We have price. So let me just go back here. Price. And then that's pretty much it. But since this relationship is a total participation, you must actually have the hotel ID as a foreign key or a secondary key in room. So I'm just going to add it right here. You're going to have hotel. I'm just going to call it hotel ID. And then since it's a foreign key, fuck. Since it's a foreign key, you must list where it is from. Well, you can state that HID, which is hotel ID, is a foreign key, and room dot HID to hotel. And then you could find it from up here. It's going to be H dot H dash ID. Now, why do we write this down? Well, every room must be related to a hotel, right? Every room must be related to a hotel. That's pretty much like the best definition. Whenever you have like a one-to-many relationship, the thing that has the one relationship will contain the key of the many. You will see this more as we go through it, but just to iterate, the reason why this has a hotel ID, which you shouldn't actually put in your ER diagram, is because of this relationship where it's many to one, right? This is like a one-to-many relationship. Anyways, we're going to go and continue through this. And then the rest kind of follow suit. So you're going to have employee. And then employee, I remember we stated the SSN was the primary key. What else? Did we give it any attributes? We just gave it a name. Okay. But hotel, it's the same thing with employee. It has a total participation. That means it holds a foreign key to what it's associated to, which is hotel. So we must also add a hotel ID within this relational schema. So we're going to have hotel ID. And then you're going to also list out foreign key. You're going to say employee dot hotel ID to hotel dot HID. And you're doing this for literally every single one. Manager, as you can tell, manager has it inherits all the attributes from employee, but it's gonna have like the same relationship. It's gonna have, well, it inherits all the primary keys and attributes. We're gonna have SSN, and then we're gonna also attach it to the hotel ID. So this is the foreign key, which is gonna be manager. I'm just gonna short form it as manage.s or .hotel ID to hotel dot HID. Okay. So I'm just gonna section this off so people looking back will know like which is relating to which. This is pretty much a summary of them. And we just keep going. So let's start with customer. We're gonna add another page. So customer. We have a cust ID. Since it's primary, you must underline it. What else did we have with customer? We had a address. Okay. And that's pretty much it. And then for book, here, actually, let me just take a picture of this diagram on my phone because you guys probably have it written down and I won't have to scroll up again and again and again. Okay. I hope you guys have that picture written down. If you don't, watch the other video, copy it. I think I show it at the very start. So we have hotel, we have customer. Customer has address and customer ID. And then we also have other relationships. Well, we have what is next in this relationship? We have book. Well, book, we have book ID. Actually, we don't have a book ID. Let's leave that for a second. Book won't have a book ID, but it has a date because it has an attribute itself. Okay, let's just work on check-in. Check-in. So when we check in, you know it's total participation on each side with employee, archive, and payment. That means it's going to have all the foreign keys related to each. So it's going to have cus ID, which is a foreign key. It's also a primary key, employee ID, and then it's also going to have pay ID. And it's also going to have RA ID, which is the rent archive that we listed above, the foreign key, key will be, well, it's going to be check-in dot customer ID to employee dot employee ID. Then it's going to be check-in dot oh well, this was, I'm just going to change this to emp ID. Then it's going to be customer dot cus ID to customer dot cus ID, and make sure these actually like are the same thing with employee and customer. And then you're gonna have something with pay ID to payment dot PID. Just gonna say PID. Let me just change this a little bit. And then you're gonna have dot rent archive ID to archive dot, I'm just gonna call it ID. Let's actually make those. Let's make payment and let's make rent archive. Payment. If you can see above payment, what do we have? Well, we had a pay ID, which since I called it there PID, I'm gonna have to say the same thing. It's PID. And then we also had a date associated with it. And you could also have an amount, doesn't matter. This is just what I had in my little quick ER model. Then you have the archive, which has the ID for it. And then I think it also has the date. Okay. So we have customer, we have archive, we have check-in. Check-in has a billion foreign keys. What else? Oh, for manager above, you have the hotel ID, right? That it's related to, but another foreign key would be like the hotel ID is not a primary key, but it is still a foreign key. But the primary key is also a foreign key that's there is derived from employee. So you would have to actually list manager dot ssn to employee dot ssn, because you get it through this relationship, right? It gets derived from it. What else am I missing? So I have that. Let me see. I'm also, yeah, I also forgot to do booking. Okay, let's see booking. Well, in booking, I'm gonna just have booking, or I called it book. Since it has a total participation with customer, so we have the book ID. I'm just gonna call it B in this instance just to make it faster. We also have the customer ID, which is a foreign key. Wait, book is not an entity. Never mind, it doesn't need its own ID. But book basically has customer ID. It has room ID, because each one has a total participation with it. It has the date, which is its own attribute, and that it could have an archive, but we didn't make the archive. So this is pretty much it. All of these are primary keys. Now it's foreign keys are going to be book dot cus ID to customer dot cus ID. And then it's going to be the same thing, but for room ID to room dot, what do we call it? We called it room ID. Perfect. ID. And that's pretty much it. Basically, when would you have to take your relationship and make it its own like relational schema? Well, there's two instances that we did it here. First, between hotel and like hotel chain and hotel, we had the owns or has relationship become its own key when it was n to n. So when you have an entity and you have n to n, you must write this one down. And this would have the primary key of this one and then the primary key of that one within it as foreign keys. And you'd have to list out what foreign keys. And where did it get it from? Which is just the two things it's connecting to. What else? Well, in the next circumstance, when would you write down the relationship set? It's when you have a total participation, right? Within a total participation, within a total participation, this will have a foreign key from this entity. So let's say I was writing this, it's going to be this, it's going to be its own ID, and then it's going to be foreign ID and any other attributes. For the one above, you're going to have that, and this is going to be this as well, and this is going to be for just random words. That will have its own ID, that. This will have its own ID, this. For will have two primary key IDs, which is ID that, and then also ID this. And that is when you have an end-to-end relationship. When you have a primary key relationship, this will have the foreign ID. Let's just say that. That will have its foreign. Well, okay, I'm just going to rename it since we're doing it this way, like in an instructive way. It's going to be that ID. And then it's going to have its other attributes. This one will have that ID as a foreign key. And let me think. Did we actually write down the relationship as well? No. Actually, we do. And then also, like we did in booking, this is going to be for as well. Just random word. For will have both of the foreign keys from that and from this. So for must have, and let's just say for has an attribute of like how. Well, for will have how, which is not a primary key, it's just an attribute. And then it'll have this ID, and then it will have that ID. Right? And the main thing to like this is pretty much the main thing. You would have to list where it got its foreign keys. The reason why this contains that ID, right? The reason why this contains that ID is pretty much because this cannot exist without that. Okay, I hope you understood the I should have probably named them differently, but this cannot exist without that. And then in the other case, the last case, let's say you have something like this, you have that again, and then you have a total participation of each with 4. When you're writing this out, you will have to have that's primary key in this is primary key in that, and then 4 will also probably contain both. So this will have this ID and any attributes that, oh wait, this ID, which is its primary key ID, and then it has that ID as a foreign key, and then that will have that ID as primary key. I know I spelled that wrong, I think. I'll probably check it later, but, and then it'll also have this. No, it's correct, right? And then it would have this as a foreign key. And then 4 will have both of them as its primary keys. .id, which is probably not even needed because you can get the relationship from each. Actually, don't think it's needed. Do I have an example of this anywhere? No, but like I think this is pretty much it. And then you have to list the foreign key. Oh yeah, that is correct. I just wrote it like in a way that makes me think that English is wrong. But it's not. It's not. It's perfectly fine. Okay, that's pretty much the 3 cases. If as long as you know what to do in every circumstance, you cannot go wrong. And as long as you know how to build your relational schema, you also can't do it wrong. I hope you guys understand. Like this is really easy. You could probably finish this midterm in like half the time that is given. But yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it. There are other cases like if you have attributes stemming from attributes, how you would do that. So let's say you have an entity, let's say it's house, and you have like an attribute stemming from an attribute. There are other ways to deal with this, and I think this actually occurred within our midterm. Instead of house, I'm just going to call it person. let's just say you have person and you have date and you have day and then you also have month. In person, you would just have to write like the person ID, and then you would also just have to write date, because these are derived from date. You don't need to write all of them down since it's derived, as we said, like way above with like derived attributes. It's not listed as derived attributes, but it's pretty much derived from that singular attribute. So you don't actually have to write them down. Okay, that's just another tip. And that is all. Whew.